He came to the mountains to escape his past. Logan Price, a Delta Force veteran haunted by ghosts of war, and his loyal K-9, Rex. But deep in the snow of Silverpine, they found something no one was meant to see. 2 police officers, buried alive, bound, and left for dead. That discovery would ignite a storm of betrayal, corruption, and fire beneath the mountain. And when the snow began to burn, one man and his dog stood between truth and oblivion. Before we begin, tell me where you're watching from, and don't forget to subscribe and hit the bell, so you never miss these stories of loyalty, redemption, and the heroes who still guard the quiet. The wind rolled through the Silverpine Mountains like a living thing, low, hollow, and endless. It scraped across the high ridges and whispered down through the black pines, carrying flakes of snow that caught the morning light like dust from heaven. Beneath that pale sky moved a man and his dog, 2 silhouettes against a wilderness that had no memory of mercy. Logan Price trudged along the mountain trail, breath steady, eyes scanning the white horizon. He was 35, tall and lean with the kind of strength carved by years, not months. His face was sharp and angular, sunburned even in winter, and a line of pale scar traced from his temple down to his jaw, a relic from somewhere he no longer spoke about. The snow had stiffened on the shoulders of his Carhartt jacket, and his gloved hand occasionally brushed the head of the German shepherd walking beside him. Rex moved like a shadow, 7 years old, sable coat, dark against the snow, muscles rippling beneath thick furry. His ears flicked with every sound, every shift of the wind. The dog had once been part of a K-9 unit overseas, a rescue trained to track through rubble and chaos. These days he worked only for Logan, who trusted him more than most men. The pair had spent the last hour checking the northern perimeter of the Silverpine Woods, a region Logan had been hired to monitor through the winter. He preferred it that way, far from the noise of towns and people who spoke too loudly of peace. The silence of the mountains suited him. It was a silence he could control. But the silence broke. It began faintly. An echo carried on the wind, metal grinding. Then a crash. Logan stopped mid-step, head lifting. Rex froze too, one paw suspended in the snow. "Easy," Logan muttered, squinting through the veil of falling flakes. The sound had come from somewhere along the western slope, sharp, mechanical, not part of nature's rhythm. They moved fast, boots crunching through the crusted snow, breaths forming ghosts in the cold air. The path dipped toward a ravine where pine roots clutched at the frozen ground like black veins. The air smelled faintly of gasoline. Then, through the trees, he saw it, a flash of chrome, half buried in white. A vehicle lay on its side, its tires spinning weakly. Steam hissed from the cracked hood. Logan descended, sliding down the embankment until his boots sank into the drift beside it. He pressed his hand to the side panel, still warm. The windshield was shattered, but there were tracks leading away, or rather, drag marks. "Stay close," he whispered. Rex's nose dropped to the snow. A low growl built in his throat as they followed the trail behind the wreck. 50 yards later, they found them, 2 human shapes buried up to their waists in snow, motionless except for the faint rise and fall of breath. Logan's pulse spiked. He fell to his knees and started digging with his gloves, the snow biting into his wrists. The first figure was a woman, her face, ghost pale beneath strands of auburn hair that had frozen to her cheek. Her hands were bound, mouth sealed with duct tape. The second was a man, broader, bearded, his skin bruised black and blue. "They're alive," Logan muttered. He ripped off the tape from the woman's mouth. She gasped, coughing so hard it echoed through the trees. Her eyes opened, green, alert despite the cold. "Police," she rasped. "Silverpine PD. Who did this?" She tried to speak again, but her body trembled too violently. Logan worked fast, freeing their hands, wrapping his own jacket around her shoulders. The man beside her stirred and groaned. Logan recognized the heavy build, the badge clipped to the vest. "Officer David Holt," the woman whispered hoarsely. "I'm Detective Claire Monroe. We were ambushed." "Ambushed by who?" Logan asked. "Vance Logistics," she said faintly. "The trucks, they weren't carrying lumber. Inside, metal, explosives." Her voice faded, eyes rolling back. Logan looked up sharply. "Rex!" The dog barked once, a warning. Snow shifted in the distance, a faint rumble of something heavy collapsing, then silence again. Logan scanned the tree line. No movement. The storm clouds above were thickening fast, sealing off what little daylight remained. He knew what came next. "We're not dying up here," he muttered. He hoisted David over one shoulder, half-dragged Claire with his other hand, and moved toward the ridge. The snow was waist-deep now, the wind slicing across his face like razors. After 20 minutes, they reached a shallow overhang of rock, barely enough to shield them from the storm. Logan lowered the two officers gently, then pulled a tarp and emergency blanket from his pack. Rex pressed against Claire's side, lending what warmth he could. Logan tore open a small heat pack and slipped it between her hands. Her eyelids fluttered. "Why help us?" she whispered. He looked at her for a long moment, his breath fogging in the dim light. "Because nobody else will." A faint hum broke through the wind, a helicopter somewhere far above. But no rescue would come in this weather. He knew that. Rex suddenly stiffened. He turned toward the wreck, ears perked, growl rumbling low. Logan followed his gaze. Through the snowfall, something glinted near the SUV's broken trunk, a crate half exposed, the wood split open. He climbed back through the snow and pried the lid loose. Inside were hollowed wooden logs packed with metal casings and wires stamped with an industrial logo. He brushed the frost from the label. Vance Logistics. He exhaled slowly, a grim recognition settling in his gut. That name wasn't new. Years ago, when he still wore a uniform, it had surfaced in whispered reports, private contractors moving illegal cargo under government contracts. He had ignored it back then, buried it like all the other ghosts. Now it had clawed its way back through the snow. He sealed the crate again, shoving snow over it until it vanished. By the time he returned to the overhang, Claire was semi-conscious, her head resting against Rex's flank. The storm was worsening, snow swirling like ash around them. Logan sat beside her, listening to the storm, listening to the faint rasp of her breath. "I don't know who you are," she murmured, "but thank you." He didn't answer. He simply stared into the white void beyond the trees, jaw clenched, mind turning. Somewhere in that storm, a line had been crossed. And he knew what that meant. Once you step back into the fire, there's no walking out clean. By nightfall, the mountain was no longer just cold. It was alive, raging. The blizzard swept through Silverpine like a living wall, howling between the trees, shaking the world with a force that could grind stone into dust. Snow came sideways, stinging like sand, and the light from Logan's lantern flickered like the last breath of a dying thing. He worked fast. The rocky overhang where he had sheltered Claire and David was barely enough to stand in, but it would have to do. Logan drove a metal stake into the ground, stretched a sheet of weatherproof fabric across the gap, and pressed it tight with branches. The crude tent shook against the wind, but it held. Inside, the air was damp and heavy. Claire lay wrapped in a blanket, her lips pale, eyes fluttering open and closed in delirium. David's breathing had steadied, though one side of his face was swollen and purple. Rex lay beside them, the old shepherd's flank rising and falling with slow patience, ears twitching at every sound outside. Logan crouched by the camp stove, coaxing a flame from the spark rod. "Come on," he muttered. The tiny light caught, orange flicker against the dark. He poured water into the canteen cup, added instant broth, and passed it to Claire. She struggled to hold it, her hands shaking. "How did you find us?" "Luck," Logan said. Then, after a beat, "And noise." She gave a weak laugh that turned into a cough. "We were tailing a transport truck through the North Road. Shipment said timber. Inside, metal cylinders, like alloy shells. There was an escort. Uniforms. Local PD markings, but their radios weren't on the city frequency. Meaning they weren't cops." She swallowed another sip. "We tried to transmit, but they jammed us. Then, nothing." Rex suddenly lifted his head. A growl rolled deep in his chest. Logan froze. "What is it, boy?" The wind outside had changed pitch, no longer the random shriek of nature, but something more deliberate. A low, rhythmic hum. Logan clicked off the lantern and listened. Beneath the storm's scream, faint but certain, came the sound of engines, multiple, approaching fast. "Stay down," he whispered. He moved to the flap, peered through a slit in the tarp. Through the swirling snow, faint red lights flickered between the trees. Then came the crack. A single gunshot tore through the night. The bullet punched through the tent's fabric, grazing Logan's arm, before embedding in the rock wall behind him. The muzzle flash outside burned bright against the storm. "Move!" Logan shouted. He threw himself over Claire as another shot ripped through. Rex lunged out the opening, teeth bared, disappearing into the blizzard. Outside, the world exploded into chaos. Shadows moved in the snow, 3, maybe 4 figures, each wearing tactical gear blacker than the night. Their visors gleamed under the flashes of their rifles. Logan rolled behind a drift, drawing his Sig Sauer pistol. He fired once, twice. 2 muzzle flares cut the dark. 1 target dropped, a grunt swallowed by the wind. The others spread out, moving with disciplined precision. "Not amateurs," he muttered. The snow burned his lungs as he crawled forward. Another figure appeared at his flank. Logan swung his knife in a clean arc, catching the man across the shoulder. The attacker stumbled, turned to fire. Too late. Logan's second strike found the soft gap under the vest. The man crumpled soundlessly into the snow. Rex reappeared, muzzle stained red, dragging a torn piece of tactical cloth. The last assailant fired wildly, bullets sparking off stone. Logan ducked low, waited for the rhythm of the shots to pause, then surged forward. He slammed the man against a tree, disarmed him with a twist, and ended it clean. For a long moment there was only the sound of the storm and the distant whine of wind through pine. Logan's pulse slowed. The fight was over. He turned, breathing hard, scanning the ground. One of the rifles had fallen into the snow. He picked it up, brushing away frost. The weapon was military issue, short-barreled, compact, with a manufacturer's mark he hadn't seen in years. Bennett Tactical Systems. The sight made his stomach turn. He'd seen that logo before, on supply crates stacked inside Forward Operating Base, Zulu, Afghanistan. Back then, he'd been under the command of Captain Troy Bennett, a man with a clean record and a reputation carved from charm and obedience. Bennett was the kind who smiled when he gave impossible orders that had gotten 3 of Logan's team killed. Snow whipped around him, ghosts of that memory clawing their way back. He shook his head, forcing the past away. "Focus," he told himself. He looked toward the shelter. Light flickered faintly through the torn canvas. Claire was struggling to sit up. Rex pressed close beside her, tail twitching nervously. Logan ducked back inside, holstering his weapon. "They're gone," he said. "Who were they?" Claire's voice was raw. "Mercenaries, and not just any. They're using Bennett's hardware." Claire frowned. "Bennett? Captain Bennett? He's my division head." Then either he's being framed or you're working for the wrong side. She didn't argue. She looked at the torn bullet holes in the tarp, then down at the snow melting on the floor. If he's involved, we won't last long. He'll send more. Logan checked his watch. We move at dawn. The storm will slow them. He sat by the stove, watching the flame flicker against the metal cup. The adrenaline ebbed, leaving behind a heaviness that settled in his bones. He flexed his shoulder. The graze from the bullet had begun to stiffen. Rex padded over, pressing his head against Logan's knee. His fur was clumped with snow and blood. "You did good, buddy," Logan whispered, scratching behind his ears. The dog's amber eyes shone in the dim light. Claire stirred, voice softer now. "You've seen this before, haven't you? The ambush. The slants?" Logan didn't answer for a moment. His gaze drifted to the flame. "Once," he said finally. "Different desert. Same kind of men." Outside, the wind began to ease. The storm's fury softened into a distant howl, like a great beast finally tired. Logan unzipped his pack and pulled out a compact radio. Static hissed when he switched it on. He toggled the channel. "Base Command, this is Delta Echo 1. I have 2 survivors of a tactical ambush near Silverpine Ridge, requesting immediate evac." Only static replied. He tried again. "This is Price. Anyone receiving—" A faint click interrupted him. Then a single line of distortion crackled through the static. "Price?" He froze. The voice was faint but unmistakable, smooth, familiar. "Captain Bennett," Logan said under his breath. "Didn't expect to hear your voice again," the transmission whispered. "You always had a talent for being where you shouldn't be." Logan's jaw tightened. "You sent them. You think you're saving someone? You're standing in a grave, soldier. Some things are meant to stay buried." The radio hissed and died. Logan stared at it for a long time. Then he looked at Claire, who had heard enough to know the truth. "What does he want?" she asked. "To make sure no one talks," Logan replied. "And now he knows we're alive." He pulled another blanket over her, checking the pistol beside his knee. "Get some rest, detective. Tomorrow we go hunting." The lantern burned lower, its glow shrinking to a thin halo of light. Outside, the snow drifted soundlessly over the bodies half buried in the forest, white, erasing red, until all that remained was silence. 2 days after the blizzard, the world had gone quiet again. The pines stood heavy with snow, their branches glistening like glass. The sun returned, but it felt weak, like an old man who'd forgotten his strength. Silverpine's sky stretched pale and empty above the white expanse, and the only sound was the slow drip of melting ice from the eaves of the small medical post on the edge of town. Inside, the air smelled faintly of iodine and wood smoke. Logan sat by the window, his arm bandaged, watching the frost on the glass slowly retreat from the sun's warmth. Rex lay near the bed, his tail twitching with uneasy sleep. Across the room, Detective Claire Monroe stirred beneath a blanket. Her face was still pale, but there was color in her lips now, and her breathing had lost that fragile edge. "You're awake," Logan said quietly. Claire blinked at him. "For now. I dreamed the snow kept falling and never stopped." He smirked faintly. "Welcome back." The nurse entered then, Marjorie Klein, a woman in her 60s with kind eyes and a voice that could hush thunder. She checked Claire's vitals and gave Logan a tired look. "You need sleep more than she does." "I'll live," Logan said. Marjorie arched an eyebrow. "That's what my husband said before the frostbite." She left with a knowing smile, leaving the two alone. Claire shifted to sit up. "I owe you my life, Logan." He shook his head. "You'd have done the same. Not everyone would walk into a blizzard for 2 strangers." Logan didn't answer. He stared out the window, where the light caught drifting flakes, still falling lazily even after the storm had passed. The silence pressed between them, comfortable but fragile. Finally, Claire said, "I've been thinking about what you found at the crash site, that crate." "Vance Logistics," he said. She nodded. "They've been under investigation for months. We thought they were moving contraband timber. Turns out it's worse. Those hollow logs? They're packed with alloy cores and lithium sheets, components for high-yield charges. Someone's building weapons right under federal radar." "Someone with clearance," Logan added. She looked up sharply. "You think Bennett's behind it?" "I think he's protecting someone who is." Logan leaned forward, voice low. "Those mercenaries in the storm weren't random hitters. Their equipment was new, standard issue for Bennett Tactical. He didn't send them to kill you. He sent them to erase the scene." Claire's jaw tightened. "And now he knows we're alive." Rex lifted his head suddenly, ears pricking. The faint hum of an approaching vehicle drifted through the thin walls. A black SUV pulled up outside the clinic. Logan stood immediately, hand drifting to the pistol holstered beneath his coat. "Expecting company?" "No," Claire said, frowning. The door creaked open, and Officer David Holt stepped in. His arm was in a sling, his beard thicker now, but he smiled when he saw them. "Well, if it isn't my guardian angels." Claire exhaled in relief. "David, you're supposed to be resting." "Hard to rest when your city's full of ghosts." He looked at Logan. "You're the guy who pulled us out?" "Something like that." Holt extended his good hand. "David Holt, Patrol Unit, Silverpine PD, or what's left of it." His grip was firm, genuine. "Heard you took down 3 men in a blizzard. Remind me never to play cards against you." Logan cracked a small grin. "They cheated first." They spoke for a while, piecing fragments together. Holt's team had been tracking Vance shipments across the northern routes. Every crate they checked was clean, until last week, when one vanished from the manifest. He and Claire went looking, and the ambush came fast. "Whoever hit us knew our route, our timing, our backup channel," Holt said grimly. "That's an inside leak." Claire rubbed her temples. "You think it's Bennett?" Holt shrugged. "His name keeps floating up, but he's got friends in the capital. No one touches him." The radio on the wall crackled suddenly, breaking the calm. Marjorie poked her head in. "Detective, call for you. Says it's urgent." Claire picked up the receiver. "Monroe here?" The line hissed with static. Then came a voice, low, smooth, unmistakable. "Detective?" Bennett said. Claire went still. "Captain?" "You've caused quite a stir," Bennett continued. 3 dead men, burned vehicles, missing evidence. You always had a knack for trouble. What do you want?" "Closure," he said simply. "The Vance case is off your desk, effective immediately. You and Holt will return your badges and await reassignment." "Over my dead body." "Careful," Bennett said softly. "That can be arranged." Logan stepped closer, speaking loud enough for the receiver to catch. "You picked the wrong ghosts to bury, Captain." There was a pause. Then Bennett's voice came again, darker. "Still playing hero, Price? I warned you once. Some graves are better left untouched." The line went dead. Claire slammed the receiver down. "He knows you're here." "Good," Logan said. "Saves me the trouble of knocking." David frowned. "If Bennett's cleaning house, we need to move. He'll send more." "Where's your gear?" Logan asked. "Locker at the precinct." "Too risky," Claire said immediately. "He probably has people watching." Logan paced, mind working. "There's another way. The crate we found, it wasn't the only one. Vance doesn't ship small. There's a depot somewhere near the old sawmill roads. If we find it, we find proof." Claire's eyes met his. "And if we don't?" Then at least we'll know what kind of war we're standing in. Outside, the wind began to rise again, not the wild scream of a blizzard, but a steady whisper, moving through the trees. The kind of sound that warned of change. Rex rose from the floor, stretching, his ears still trained toward the window. His instincts were never wrong. Holt sighed. "You two are insane. You know that, right?" "Probably," Logan said, "but crazy gets things done." Claire smiled faintly for the first time in days. "Then we go tonight." The sun bled out early that evening. A gray dusk settled over Silverpine, turning the snow to steel. Logan stood by the truck outside, loading supplies. A map, a radio scanner, his old combat knife. Claire approached, wrapped in a dark parka, badge hidden beneath. "Where are we even going?" she asked. "North of the ridge. If the Vance route's still active, they'll have to move stock before the next storm. It's their only chance." She hesitated. "And if Bennett gets there first?" Logan shut the door with a solid click. "Then we stop him." From the porch, Marjorie watched them go. "Be careful," she called. "Always," Claire said. The truck's engine growled to life, tires crunching over frozen gravel. The road curved away into the forest where night gathered like smoke. Inside, Claire sat in silence for a long time. Then she said quietly, "You don't talk much about your past. Nothing worth telling. You were Delta Force, weren't you?" Logan's grip on the wheel tightened slightly. "Once." "What happened?" He paused. "We followed orders, and they got people killed." Claire nodded slowly. "That's why you came here, to disappear." "Guess that didn't work out." A faint smile crossed her lips. "No, it didn't." They drove on, headlights cutting through the endless white. Somewhere, in that vast frozen expanse, the truth waited, buried but breathing. And this time, Logan swore, he wouldn't leave it buried. Night in Silverpine came early, as if the mountains themselves couldn't bear to stay awake. The town's few streetlights flickered through falling snow, their yellow halos swallowed by the wind. Out on the northern ridge, a pickup truck rolled along a logging road that hadn't seen maintenance in years. Logan drove, hands steady on the wheel. The headlights cut through the white darkness like twin blades. Beside him, Claire studied the map, illuminated by her flashlight. Rex sat between them, ears twitching with every bump. "The old sawmill should be 6 miles ahead," Claire said. "Vance used it as a waypoint before they shifted routes." Logan grunted in response. His focus never wavered. He'd been driving through storms his whole life, deserts, jungles, war zones. But somehow snow was different. Snow remembered. It covered everything but forgot nothing. Behind them, Officer David Holt dozed in the back seat, his service pistol resting across his lap. The man looked worn beyond his 40 years, dark eyes, a streak of gray in his beard. A survivor like them, too stubborn to quit. Claire glanced toward Logan. "You sure about this? We don't even know what we're walking into." "Doesn't matter," he said quietly. "We'll know when we see it." The forest closed in around them, the trees tall and black like sentinels. Then, through the snowfall, a faint orange glow appeared ahead, light leaking through the seams of a half-buried structure. Logan killed the engine and motioned for silence. Rex stood, alert. They stepped out into the bitter air, crunching through snow toward what looked like an abandoned freight depot. The metal siding was warped with rust, the Vance Logistics logo still faintly visible beneath frost. A loading ramp jutted out from the main structure, half swallowed by ice. "Doesn't look too abandoned," Holt muttered, nodding toward the faint heat shimmer from the vents. Logan crouched, touching the snow. "Fresh tire tracks, heavy load." Claire drew her weapon. "Then we're not alone." They moved along the wall, careful, silent. Logan found a side door and eased it open. The hinges groaned softly. Inside, the air was warm, stale. Rows of crates lined the floor, each marked with shipping codes that didn't match the manifest Claire had shown earlier. Rex sniffed along the aisle, tail stiff. He stopped at one of the crates, pawing at the lid. Logan pried it open with his knife and froze. Inside the hollowed timber were metallic cylinders, identical to what they'd seen in the wreck. Alloy casings, lithium cores, and a nest of coiled wires. "Explosives," Claire whispered. "Industrial grade. This isn't smuggling, it's manufacturing." Logan snapped several photos with his satellite phone. "Evidence," he said, "enough to put half the department away." Suddenly, the faint click of a safety being released echoed from behind them. "Drop the gun, detective." They turned. Standing in the doorway was Sergeant Cole Hartman, a Silverpine officer, broad-shouldered, blond buzz-cut, his eyes the cold blue of steel. His uniform bore the same insignia as Claire's, but the stance, the smirk, it all screamed corruption. "Hartman," Claire said, lowering her weapon slightly, "what the hell are you doing here?" "Following orders," he replied. "Captain's orders. You're done, Claire. The feds are pulling out. Case is closed." Logan stepped forward. "And yet you're guarding a warehouse full of bombs." Hartman's grin faltered just a little. "You shouldn't have come here, Price. You're not part of this world anymore." "Maybe not," Logan said evenly, "but I'm still breathing in it." The sergeant's expression hardened. He raised his rifle. "Last warning." A sound cut through the tension, the faint buzz of a phone vibrating. Everyone froze. It was coming from inside one of the crates. Hartman turned his head slightly. That was all Logan needed. In a single motion, he grabbed Claire and rolled behind the nearest stack. A burst of gunfire tore through the air, shredding wood and echoing through the depot. Rex lunged forward with a savage growl, slamming into Hartman's leg. The rifle clattered to the floor. Logan came up firing, a single controlled shot that grazed Hartman's arm. The man stumbled, grabbed a fallen crate, and knocked Rex aside before diving behind a forklift. "Cover the side," Logan shouted. Holt moved to flank him, but a second gunman burst through the far door. Another officer, face-masked, firing short controlled bursts. The bullets sparked off metal and shattered a fluorescent light overhead. "Two of them!" Holt yelled. Logan slid across the concrete, grabbed the fallen rifle, and fired a burst toward the ceiling. The light fixtures exploded, plunging the room into flickering half-darkness. "Rex, smoke!" he called. The dog barked once, darting behind cover. Logan pulled a flash grenade from his pocket, a relic from old Delta days, and tossed it low. It went off with a blinding crack of light. When the smoke cleared, Hartman was gone. Only a blood trail remained, leading out the back door. Claire approached the exit, weapon raised. The cold rushed in, carrying the distant hum of engines fading into the forest. "He's running back to Bennett," she said. "Let him," Logan replied. "He'll lead us straight there." They searched the rest of the depot quickly. Every crate was the same. False lumber packed with weapon components, ready for transport. Claire opened a small locker near the rear and froze. Inside hung a line of uniforms marked Silverpine Tactical Division. Each one bore the emblem of Captain Bennett's old task force. Her voice trembled. "He's been using the department as cover." Logan's expression darkened. "It's not just him. It's systemic. You burn this place, you burn half the chain of command." She looked at him, eyes fierce. "Then we light the match." He gave a short nod, then handed her the sat phone. "You'll need to get this to someone who still cares." "Who?" "Doesn't matter, just not through official channels." She hesitated. "You don't trust the Bureau?" "I don't trust anyone wearing a badge right now," he said. Outside, the wind began to rise again. Snow whirled through the open doorway, scattering papers and ash. The storm was returning. They left the depot and made their way back to the truck. The headlights cut through the white, and for a moment everything felt suspended in silence until Holt's radio crackled suddenly to life. A voice came through, strained and broken. "Claire, Claire, it's David. Don't—" Then static. Logan slammed the brakes. Where was that signal coming from? Claire checked the GPS display on her wrist device. A blinking dot pulsed near the town perimeter, moving fast. "It's him," she said. "That's David's tracker. He must have left it on when we split up this morning." "But he's not in the truck," Logan said slowly. They exchanged a glance that said everything neither dared to voice. Claire's fingers trembled as she switched the channel. "David? Can you hear me?" A faint cough crackled through the static. "Claire, they have me. Uniforms. Wrong. Badge." His voice broke into static, then silence. Rex whined softly in the back seat. Claire stared at the signal, blinking faster now, moving north. "He's alive, but not for long." Logan put the truck in gear. "Then we find him." She nodded, jaw set. "And after that?" "After that," Logan said, eyes cold, "we take the fight to Bennett." The truck roared forward into the storm, snow rising behind them like ghosts. The forest north of Silverpine had a way of swallowing sound. Even the crunch of snow underfoot felt muted, as if the trees themselves were listening. The headlights of Logan's truck cut through the fog for only a few feet before fading into the white. The storm had not yet broken, but the sky was bruised with warning. Claire sat beside him, eyes locked on the small GPS display. A blinking red dot pulsed against the map's grid. "He's moving," she said, heading northeast, toward the old ranger trail. Logan's jaw tightened. "That trail leads into the backcountry. No one goes there unless they want to disappear." From the back seat, Rex gave a low growl. The shepherd's ears were high, his body alert. He felt what Logan did. The air carried tension, metallic and heavy. Something was waiting for them out there. They left the truck at the tree line, moving on foot. Snow came to their knees, the cold seeping through every seam of their clothes. Logan led, rifle raised, Rex close at heel. Claire followed silently, her breath visible in the narrow beam of her flashlight. For the first hour, the only sounds were wind and the occasional creak of branches. Then Rex stopped. His tail stiffened, nose low to the ground. "Tracks," Logan whispered. In the snow ahead were boot prints, 3 sets, deep, recent, and uneven, as if one man was being half-dragged. Claire's stomach twisted. "David." They followed the trail deeper into the pines, where the forest grew denser and the shadows longer. The air smelled of gasoline and wood smoke. Somewhere close, a generator hummed faintly beneath the wind. When they reached the clearing, Logan motioned for Claire to get down. Through the trees, a faint orange light flickered from a wooden cabin, an old hunting outpost. A pair of snowmobiles were parked beside it, engines still warm. 2 armed men stood outside, faces obscured by balaclavas. One smoked, the ember glowing like a small red eye in the dark. The other was pacing, his rifle slung carelessly. Logan could see movement inside through a grimy window. Someone tied to a chair. "David," Claire breathed. Logan scanned the perimeter. 2 guards outside, maybe more inside. "We'll have to move fast." "I can take the one smoking," she whispered. He gave her a look. "You ever shoot a man before?" Her eyes hardened. "I'm a cop, not a clerk." Logan studied her for a second, then nodded. "On my signal." They moved like ghosts through the snow, the forest muffling every step. Rex slinked beside them, silent as breath. When they were within 20 feet, Logan raised his hand. 3 seconds. 2. 1. The smoking guard turned and never finished his exhale. Claire's shot dropped him clean. Logan rushed the second, blade flashing in the dark, catching him under the collarbone. The man fell soundlessly, snow swallowing the sound of his body hitting ground. "Go," Logan whispered. They reached the cabin door. Logan peeked through a crack. The room inside was dim, lit by a single hanging bulb. David Holt sat bound to a chair, bruised, blood dried at the corner of his mouth. A man in tactical armor stood near him, speaking into a radio. "Yes, sir. The convoy leaves at dawn. Bennett's orders." Claire clenched her jaw. Logan placed a hand on her shoulder. "On three," he mouthed. He kicked the door open. Gunfire exploded instantly. The first bullet grazed his sleeve. The second shattered a jar on the shelf. Rex barreled through the door, teeth bared, slamming into the guard's leg. The man screamed, gun flying from his hand. Logan tackled him, disarmed him with a knee to the ribs, and slammed the butt of his rifle across his jaw. It was over in seconds. Only the storm outside kept howling. Claire rushed to David's side, cutting his restraints. "You're okay. You're okay." David coughed, blinking through bloodshot eyes. "Took you long enough." Then quieter. "They were going to move the rest tonight. The old Silverpine mine, they're burning everything." Logan froze. "The mine?" David nodded weakly. "Everything's there. Records, payments, serial numbers. Bennett's heading there himself." Claire's breath caught. "He's tying up every loose end." "Then we cut the line," Logan said. "Now." They helped David to his feet, but before they could move, a crack echoed from outside, then another. Bullets shattered the cabin window. Splinters flew across the room. "They're here," Claire shouted. Logan shoved her down behind the table. "Stay low." He peered through the jagged glass. Shadows moved between the trees, 3, maybe 4 shapes. He fired twice, the muzzle flare illuminating the night. Rex barked, snarling toward the door. Another round tore through the wall, narrowly missing David. "They're flanking," Logan yelled. He tossed a flashbang through the front door. It detonated with a thunderous crack, turning the night white. In that instant, he grabbed Claire's arm. "Out the back!" They burst through the rear exit into the blinding snow. The forest was a chaos of sound, gunfire, wind, shouting. Rex darted ahead, cutting a path through the drifts. Logan half-dragged David along, while Claire fired short bursts behind them. When they reached the ravine, Logan stopped. "We hold here." He turned, covering their flank as Claire knelt beside David. The men chasing them appeared through the fog, dark silhouettes against the snow. Logan fired methodically, one shot at a time. The first man fell, the second ducked behind a tree. A bullet grazed Logan's shoulder, but he didn't flinch. He'd been shot before, in places that hurt worse than flesh. Then whipped silence. The enemy had stopped shooting. "Why'd they stop?" Claire whispered. Rex growled low. Logan's breath frosted in the air as he listened. He could hear it then, a faint rhythmic sound from the tree line, boots crunching. But too steady, too heavy. Not 3 men. 5. He exhaled sharply. "They're circling." He pulled a flare from his pocket, struck it. The red light hissed to life, staining the snow crimson. Shadows rippled in the forest. The attackers hesitated, just long enough for Rex to strike. The dog leapt into the darkness, teeth flashing, dragging one man down. Logan fired again, taking another. Claire's rounds caught the third as he tried to run. Then the forest went still. Only the hiss of the dying flare and the ragged breathing of the survivors filled the night. Claire sank to her knees, trembling. "Is it over?" "For now," Logan said, reloading. He glanced at Rex, who limped back toward him, blood on his fur, but eyes bright and alive. Logan knelt, hand firm on the dog's shoulder. "Good boy." David leaned against a tree, wincing. "You two really don't quit." "Neither did you," Logan said. "You ready to finish this?" David's grin was weak but steady. "Let's burn the bastard." The snow began again, gentle and slow, as if trying to cover the night's violence. But Logan knew better. Some stains never disappeared. They just froze until someone dug deep enough to find them again. He looked at Claire. Her hair clung wet to her face, cheeks flushed from the cold, eyes burning with something fierce. "We head for the mine before sunrise," he said. "That's where it ends." She nodded. "And if Bennett's waiting?" Logan checked the magazine, chambered around. "Then it ends there, too." The flare sputtered out, leaving them in darkness. The old Silverpine mine had been closed for 40 years, but it still breathed. The mountain exhaled steam through cracks in the frozen rock, and the smell of oil drifted through the snow like a ghost that refused to die. The world above was buried in night. Only the thin beam of Logan's flashlight cut through the dark as he, Claire, David, and Rex made their way toward the gaping mouth of the mine. "This place looks dead," David muttered, voice low, rifle steady. Logan shook his head. "Dead things don't hum." From deep inside came a faint vibration, mechanical, rhythmic. Claire adjusted the strap on her satchel. "Generators. They're powering something." Rex growled softly, hackles rising. They moved in, weapons ready. The tunnel swallowed them whole. The walls were slick with condensation, and the air grew warmer as they descended. The silence was the kind that only came before violence, thick, expectant. At the first junction, they found it, a massive underground chamber lined with freight containers and machinery. The air shimmered with heat from industrial lamps. Crates marked Vance Logistics were stacked to the ceiling, many of them open, revealing the same hollow logs packed with metallic cylinders. A pair of diesel generators roared in one corner, feeding power to a cluster of computers and fuel lines. "God," Claire whispered, "this is enough to arm a small war." David scanned the area. "Where's Bennett?" Logan motioned toward a staircase leading to a mezzanine above. "Up there." They advanced slowly, keeping to the shadows. Rex stayed close, silent and alert. The deeper they went, the more the place felt alive. Machines thrumming, pipes vibrating, the hiss of gas leaking somewhere unseen. Claire paused, frowning. "Do you hear that?" It wasn't mechanical. It was voices. 2 men arguing near the far corner. Logan signaled for silence and edged closer. "Bennett says everything burns tonight," one voice hissed. "Feds are sniffing too close." "And the files?" "In the vault. He'll torch it himself." The men moved away. Logan turned to Claire. "We have to split. You get to that vault and pull whatever data you can. David, cover her. Rex and I will find Bennett." Claire started to protest. "No, you can't." He cut her off. "You said it yourself. This ends tonight. Let's make it count." She hesitated, then nodded. 60 minutes, then we're gone." Logan watched them vanish into the shadows before turning toward the stairs. His boots clanged against the metal steps as he ascended. The air thickened with heat and smoke. At the top, he found a walkway overlooking the whole chamber, and standing there, bathed in the flickering orange glow of machinery, was Captain Troy Bennett. He looked older than Logan remembered, gray at the temples, lines etched deep around his mouth, but his eyes were the same, cold, sharp, commanding. He wore a tactical vest and carried himself like a man still convinced he was righteous. "Well," Bennett said, smiling faintly, "if it isn't my ghost?" "Didn't expect you to dig this deep," Logan replied. "You always were persistent. I told you once to stop chasing shadows." "You created them," Logan said. "Men died because of you. Good men. You sold them out for contracts, for power." Bennett sighed as if bored. "You still think this is about money? It's survival. The world's changing price. You either adapt or get buried." "I've been buried," Logan said. "Didn't take." Bennett's smile faded. "Walk away, soldier. I'll even let you take your little friends. This ends quietly, if you want it to." Logan leveled his rifle. "It ends either way." For a moment, neither moved. Then Bennett drew his pistol with practiced speed. The first shot hit a railing beside Logan, showering sparks. Logan fired back, hitting the steel column inches from Bennett's shoulder. The firefight erupted in echoes, bullets screaming through the chamber. Sparks and smoke turned the air to chaos. Below, alarms blared. Claire and David heard the gunfire as they reached the vault, a heavy steel door locked by a keypad. "Keep watch," Claire said, kneeling by the console. She pulled a data drive from her bag and began working the override code. David stood by the doorway, rifle raised. "Logan's buying us time. Let's not waste it." The terminal beeped. "Got it." Claire yanked the drive free, stuffing it into her pocket. All records, shipment numbers, bank routes, client lists. Then she froze. A sound, a steady hiss. David turned, eyes widening. A stream of fuel was leaking from a ruptured pipe above them, trickling toward the generators. "Oh, hell," he whispered. They rigged the place to blow. "Move!" They sprinted toward the tunnel, the first explosion shaking the ground behind them. Flames roared through the vents, consuming air and steel alike. Above, Bennett staggered as the walkway lurched. Fire raced along a fuel line at his feet. He turned toward Logan, face twisted in fury. "You think you're the hero? You'll die down here with me." "Maybe," Logan said, "but you'll die first." He fired. The bullet hit Bennett square in the chest. The captain stumbled backward, eyes wide with disbelief. For a heartbeat, the world seemed to hold still. Then the floor beneath him gave way, and Bennett vanished into the inferno below. Logan dropped to one knee, lungs burning. The heat was unbearable now, smoke filling the chamber. Rex barked from below, circling near the stairs, unwilling to leave without him. "Go," Logan shouted. "Go, boy." But Rex didn't move. He barked again, defiant. Logan swore under his breath and started down the stairs just as another explosion ripped through the far wall. Fire erupted from a ruptured drum, hurling debris across the walkway. A steel beam fell, striking the steps. Logan dove, barely clearing it. At the base, he found Claire and David waiting, faces smeared with soot. "You got it?" he rasped. Claire held up the drive. "Everything. Then move." They sprinted through the tunnel, the roar of collapsing machinery behind them. The air was thick with heat and dust. Rex ran ahead, leading them toward the surface light. The final blast came as they reached the exit. A wave of fire chased them through the tunnel, forcing them to dive into the snow outside. The ground shook as the mine collapsed in on itself, the mouth sealing with a thunderous roar. For a long moment, none of them moved. Then Logan rolled onto his back, staring up at the stars. They looked cold and clean, mockingly serene after the chaos below. Rex limped over, licking his face, his fur singed at the edges. Logan laughed hoarsely, the sound breaking into a cough. "You never listen, do you?" Claire crawled beside him, clutching the drive to her chest. Her voice trembled. "We got him. We actually got him." David sat a few feet away, staring at the smoking crater that had once been the mine. "Yeah," he said quietly. "But at what cost?" No one answered. The wind howled through the valley, scattering ash across the snow like black petals. After a while, Logan stood, pulling Rex close. "We call it in," he said. "Feds will come looking." Claire nodded, exhaustion softening her features. She looked at him with something like gratitude and something deeper. "What will you do after this?" Logan stared into the distance where dawn was beginning to push at the horizon. "Probably find another mountain," he said. "Seems I'm good at those." She smiled faintly. "You're impossible." "Yeah," he said, "but I'm still here." As they turned back toward the long road through the snow, the sun finally rose, thin, golden, and cold. Behind them, the mine still smoked, a monument to greed and ghosts. And somewhere deep within the ashes, beneath the frozen earth, the last echo of the inferno whispered into silence. Spring came late to Silverpine. Even as the calendar turned, snow still clung to the shoulders of the pines, reluctant to leave. The air smelled of thawing earth and wood smoke, and the river that once lay frozen now murmured softly through the valley. 3 months had passed since the fire beneath the mountain. The mine was sealed, the ground scorched in a black ring where the blast had vented through. What was once a monument to greed now lay buried under silence and the whisper of new grass. In the heart of town, the Silverpine courthouse stood draped with the flag, its steps crowded with press and officials. Inside, the federal hearing concluded with calm, practiced finality. Vance, founder of the logistics empire that had poisoned the valley, was sentenced to life without parole. His empire dismantled, assets seized. Captain Troy Bennett, found alive but crippled in the wreckage, was convicted of treason and obstruction of justice. He did not speak during sentencing, not a word. When the gavel fell, a collective exhale rippled through the room as though the mountain itself had loosened its grip on the town. Outside, Logan stood under the eaves, hands in the pockets of his faded flannel, Rex at his side. The dog's fur had grown back where the burns once were, silver streaks catching the light. He sat calmly, eyes on the courthouse steps, the leather tag on his collar glinting. Rex, Canine Service. Claire Monroe approached from behind, her steps measured, her uniform crisp but eyes tired. Her hair was shorter now, chopped to her shoulders. The cold wind teased a few strands across her cheek. "Long day," she said. Logan gave a small nod. "Long year. They gave me the commendation." "Let me guess," he said, lips twitching faintly. The speech was about bravery, teamwork, and the triumph of justice. "Something like that," she said, almost smiling. "They wanted to give you one, too." He shrugged. "I told them to keep it. I already got mine." At his feet, Rex thumped his tail once against the ground. Claire's smile softened. "He's healing well. Better than most of us." A silence lingered between them, comfortable, heavy, full of things neither needed to say. Then Claire exhaled, watching her breath ghost away. "David's moving out to Denver. He says he's had enough of small towns and ghosts." Logan's eyes stayed on the courthouse. Good for him. He deserves a quieter war. She hesitated. "What about you? What now?" He turned, finally looking at her. "There's always another ridge somewhere, another place that needs watching." "You ever get tired of running?" "Only when I stop," he said. For a moment the wind was the only voice between them. Then Claire reached into her coat pocket and pulled out a small box wrapped in cloth. She handed it to him. He opened it. Inside lay the medal she'd been given, silver, engraved with the emblem of the Department of Justice. "It's yours," she said. "I wouldn't have made it without you." Logan stared at the medal for a long time, its shine muted in the gray light. Then he crouched, placed it gently on the ground in front of Rex. "He's the one who deserves it," he said quietly. "He never left anyone behind." Rex sniffed at the medal, then rested his paw over it, tail sweeping softly through the dust. Claire blinked hard, turning away. A bell tolled from the church tower down the street, echoing through the thawing valley. People were already gathering outside the town hall for the memorial, flowers, candles, photos of the officers who died during the investigation. The air held the smell of pine resin and candle wax. When Logan and Claire arrived, the crowd parted slightly. A banner fluttered across the porch, in honor of those who stood against the storm. David Holt was there, his arm still in a sling, wearing civilian clothes. He raised a hand when he saw them. Heard you two made it out of the hearing without punching anyone. Progress. Barely, Claire said with a half-smile. They joined the small crowd as the mayor spoke, his voice solemn and warm. Silverpine endured a darkness we could not see, hidden beneath our own feet. But in that darkness, courage still burned. Logan barely heard the words. His gaze drifted toward the tree line beyond town, where snow still glittered between the pines. The same ridge where he had first found the wreck, the same trail where everything began. When the ceremony ended, he slipped away quietly, Rex padding at his heel. Claire saw him go, but didn't stop him. She understood. Some men weren't built for rooms full of applause. The road out of Silverpine wound through the forest like a scar. The snow was melting fast now, revealing patches of green and the soft trickle of water running beneath the ice. Birds had returned, their songs tentative, as if unsure if the world was safe again. Logan stopped at the edge of the forest. The ranger outpost stood there, repaired and silent. Someone, perhaps the town, had carved new words into the wooden sign that hung from its gate. For those who still guard the quiet. He reached out, brushing the carved letters with his glove. Rex sat beside him, head tilted, amber eyes reflecting the morning light. Logan crouched beside the dog, scratching behind his ears. "Guess that means us, huh?" Rex huffed softly, tail wagging once. From his pocket, Logan pulled a worn photograph, 3 men in uniform, arms over each other's shoulders, younger, laughing under a desert sun. His old Delta team. He traced their faces with his thumb. "It took me too long to understand, boys. You can't keep fighting every battle. Sometimes, guarding what's left, that's enough." He tucked the photo away, tightened the strap of his pack, and glanced one last time toward the town. The smoke from chimneys curled lazily into the pale sky. Claire stood on the courthouse steps, watching from afar. She raised a hand. He lifted his in return. No words, just the understanding that some goodbyes didn't need sound. Then Logan turned and started down the ridge, boots crunching on the frozen path. Rex trotted beside him, the two figures cutting through mist and melting snow. The sun broke through the clouds, scattering gold across the mountainside. They walked until the forest swallowed them again, until the sound of town faded into memory. And for the first time in years, Logan Price felt something he hadn't known since before the war, peace not born of victory, but of acceptance. Behind him, the wind stirred through the pines, whispering faintly through the thaw. Some battles end not with a bullet, but with a breath. And somewhere between that breath and the silence, man and dog disappeared into the mountains. Two shadows bound by the covenant of snow. Sometimes miracles don't arrive with thunder or light. They come quietly, through a soldier who refuses to give up, through a loyal dog who won't walk away, through the stillness after the storm. When faith whispers, "You're not alone." Maybe that's God's way of reminding us that grace doesn't always roar, it endures. And perhaps the real miracle isn't being saved, but finding the strength to keep saving others. If this story touched your heart, share it with someone who still believes in hope. Leave a comment telling us where you're watching from, and say a quiet prayer for those who stand in the snow, guarding peace we often take for granted. May God bless you, your family, and every soul who still chooses kindness when the world grows cold. Subscribe to our channel for more stories of faith, courage, and the small miracles that still live among us. Because sometimes all it takes to change the world is one act of love in the snow.